So, this talk is on practical portable antenna supports. I'm Dale, WB6BYU. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. So we don't have to worry about the wireless mics interacting. I'm just going to talk. Well, yeah, we can. People are welcome to come in. So, first of all, I'm not going to get into the topic of antennas. If we did, you'd be late for dinner on Tuesday. So I'm just going to focus on antenna supports for today. And I'm going to start off with philosophy, because that's an important way of the way I approach these things. The first thing is pragmatism. I mean, does it work for what you need to do right now? That's what's important. Not is it the best you can buy, not is it this, is, and some of this comes from, like working in a logging camp in Alaska where they don't have next day Amazon delivery. So you've got what you got, and that's it. So as an example, if you get sent out to, maybe it's the South Podunk Valley Green Call is now a emergency shelter, and you need to provide communications, and you need some extra height, and there's nothing around but Jim's used vacuum cleaner shop across the street. Well, then you can still make a portable antenna support with enough vacuum cleaner sections. So the
They're very portable.
Very portable, but you really need to reinforce these pieces because they're not very strong. Yeah, I may be the one standing up here, but I'm still happy to learn from other people, and I'm still actively learning more and more about this hobby after 50 some odd years. Theory or practice, we're going to do both. The theory is important because that allows you to understand the trade-offs you're making. Like, oh, is it better to get it this high, or is it better to use a non-metallic mast, or whatever the case may be. So knowing the theory is important, and practices, then you go do what you need to do and make whatever kinds of improvisation or compromises you need to make. Okay, but you understand the trade-off you're making. Make that implicit, or make it explicit, so you know why you're making this trade-off, and do whatever you need to do. Don't copy my projects. Not that you can't use those ideas, but my projects aren't designed for somebody else to copy. I'm not going to tell you, use 3 number 4 screws of this length and get one of these and go buy this off that internet website and do this. I'm going to show you different ways to do it, and you can then take those and adapt them to your own situation. Because that's what's important. You're not always in the same situations I don't always do things the same way. In fact, rarely do I do the same thing twice, but anyway. And making mistakes is a part of learning. That's how I know that the vacuum cleaner sections need some either fiberglass strapping tape or hose clamps around the bases of the sections, because, yeah, I've got some broken ones. So don't worry about if the mast falls down. You figure out what you need to do better, or what else you need to do. Okay, so all of that is an important, the philosophy of how I approach this. Now, I will comment that I do have a website called practicalantennas.com. There's little flyers up here if you want one to go look at it. So if you like this approach, you can go there, and if you don't like my approach, then you know where not to go. Okay, so let's start. This is about portable antenna supports. Let's start by defining portable, or not, is probably a better approach. It could be field day, could be a de-expedition. Those are things where performance is really important. You got more time to set it up. Parks on the air, summits on the air, islands on the air, backpacking, camping, vacation cabin, emergency response, event communications for a marathon. All those are different. They have different requirements. There'll be different situations. What works for one won't work for the other. And so I'm going to give you a bunch of ideas, and you figure out for each situation what's going to work best for you. And they require different solutions. There's no one right answer, right? So you're gonna choose what works. It's like, oh no, if I always go portable in this park, they don't let me put a stake in the ground. Great, then you use something that doesn't require a stake in the ground, and we got, oh no, we don't have pictures of that. Okay, sorry. I don't have those pictures on the website either, we'll get those. And the military approach to portable means you don't have to pour concrete and let it sit. So, you know, there's all different ranges, and so we're going to talk about portable masts, we're going to talk about using trees, we're going to talk about rope work, and we're going to talk about accessories. And you know, I better get my timer up here, because otherwise you are going to be late for dinner. Okay. Have to keep myself on track. Fortunately, I have my crib sheet here, but you don't get to watch the video. Okay, so important criteria for supports. The space, time, and people you have available to set it up. On field day, we go out there Friday morning and we've got 5 people or more stringing antennas up in the trees. And we put up 3-element tri-bander at 32 feet. That takes time, that takes space, that takes people. Other times, you know, you're just gonna go park your car someplace and operate, or, oh, I think I'll go sit on this picnic table and play around radio a little bit. Totally different situations, different amounts of time. You say, oh, well, I gotta get up to this summit and I wanna make my 10 contacts or whatever, but then I gotta get down before the lightning storm comes in. Great. Speed's important, lightweight's important, other things aren't. Site constraints. You know, some places will let you pound stakes in the lawn, some parks don't. You know, how high can it go? What else is there? Are there fence posts so you can tie to? There's always those kinds of constraints. Transportation, what can you carry? Are you driving an RV? You can put a 20-foot thing on the roof. Are you pedaling a bicycle? Are you backpacking for 2 days? That all affects the choice. And that's why I say there's no one right answer. What's available? And versatility, adaptability. That means, how much do I know exactly what the situation is going to be, or how much can I make the situation always exactly the same, versus how can I adapt to whatever situation I encounter. An example is, I see these people and they've got their guy ropes and they're carefully cut to the right length, and they measure out from the base just how far to go to put the stakes, because they have the right length ropes, and that's great if your lawn is perfectly flat. Some of us don't go places with flat lawns very often. So, anyway, that's the kind of adaptability, you know, how can you adjust if you're not in a perfect situation? Now, tell us the most common ones probably these days are telescoping ones, and you've seen all these things, you know, little skinny tops, and they go up and all that point. And the way you put up a telescoping mast is you put the base upright, vertical, and then you extend it. A lot of these don't work as well if you try and tip them up. The next step up, a little bit heavier, is the windsock poles. And so that's the top section of this windsock pole, a lot stiffer.
Fiberglass?
What?
Fiberglass or carbon?
I think it's fiberglass. I don't know. Windsock pole.
Like a real windsock?
Yeah.
Okay.
And in some of the kite shops will carry those. Is it worth doing one or the other? That depends on what you need to put on top. I can support a dipole on this thing, inverted V. Oh wait. Oh yeah, this is.
What kind of pole did you call that?
A windsock.
Windsock pole.
Windsock.
Windsock, like typically the orange things you see at heliports that tell them what direction the wind's blowing.
Yeah.
But they're also used for kite-ish kinds of things. So,
Nothing to do with TCP/IP.
Then if you really want to get something serious, this is the telescoping pole made by Max Gain Systems. And I can lift it with one hand.
Who
But
manufactures that?
what?
Who's the manufacturer?
Max Gain Systems, MGS. Now, MFJ sold one that's, I don't know if they get it from the same place. It's about the same as far as features. This one, the shipping will cost you more. Whether it's if you can pick it up locally at a store, you may be able to get the MFJ for less. I haven't tried the MFJ. But it's got the latches like this. And that's, yeah, that's a good tip too. Mark your telescoping poles when you're getting towards the end, so you know how far not to extend it. Okay.
Oh,
So you know
maybe
how
let's
far
not bump the ceiling today.
Roughly how high is that one though?
This one goes something like 26 feet. So these are 4-foot sections. Now, another really important thing about telescoping things is to make sure you can reach the top. And I remember somebody had, oh yeah, they had their 24-foot painter's pole, you know, it's 3 8-foot sections. Well, unless you have a ladder, you can't reach that to run them up. And because of how much room all these clamps take, when I looked at it and thought, oh, if this is a 6-foot piece, I'm gonna have trouble getting the top up. So I went for the 4-foot one. If you can stand on the bed of a pickup truck or something like that to put it up, 6 feet gives you, a lot of them are 10-foot, their own masts are 10 feet. They did used to make 5-footers. I haven't seen those available for a while. But back when people used a lot of TV masts and they get up on their roof and try to extend them, that was a popular size. You know, the painter's poles are often a problem, but this is one of the best things I've found. This is not in the paint department. This is in the window cleaning department at Home Depot. It's got a triangular cross section. It's got these nice latches to it. Because it's triangular, it won't rotate. And it's easier than trying to twist it to get it to jam. And okay, it's a little long for our electric Kona, but it fits just fine in the back of my van. And this also goes for 24 feet, but it's 4 sections. And so it's much easier to use. I got that at Home Depot. I was walking down the aisle and said, whoa, that looks good. I pulled one out and I extended it all the way up to see how it works. Right there in Home Depot, they've got a high ceiling.
What section?
In the window cleaning, not the paint.
I'm not good at engineering. Is there a secret to get a loop to a carabiner at the top?
Yeah, Buddy Pole actually sells it. Well, they sell an adapter to the pipe thread. But if you want a
3D printer friend.
How far does that extend?
this is about a 24-foot. So, you had a question?
Actually, an answer on that. Another thing you can consider, I actually got a pole like that, and I bought something off of Amazon. It's a set of 3. They're kind of L-shaped. They screw onto the end and then have an outrigger thing with a couple of notches in it that you can, they're kind of for reaching and retrieving, but you could also use it to support a line or something like that, or tie stuff onto it.
Okay, I was just looking for something quick here.
Painter's
This-
pole attachments, I think they call them.
How do you get a carabiner on the end? Well, this is later in my talk when I talk about little loops of rope, and you just put it right around there, around the top. Come on, around the top. Come on cue. You can do it. There you go. And put a carabiner in that. And actually, while I've got this piece out, this is particularly handy for, I'm missing the bottom clamp on this, but on these little skinny poles, So I got the knot over here. I'm gonna take this end and pass it around. 1, 2, 3, make a prusik hitch. And there it is. And you, what, you can use that for guys, you can use that for a pulley or a carabiner, whatever you want. And by the way, the best material I found for this particular application is the old waxed,
Mason line?
no, not the Mason line, but they use for wrapping wire bundles in tube equipment.
Wax string.
Yeah, it's the,
Linden wax string.
there's a name for it. Well, I use dental floss too. I put up a rhombic antenna with dental floss one time.
Lacing cord.
Yeah, lacing cord.
tape, string tie.
Yeah, but the waxed lacing cord that they used to use before printed circuit boards to tie all the wires, to hook all the wires together into nice bundles. And the wax gives it good, helps it stick, so it doesn't slide down the pole. So yes, there's methods to do that. And, oh, while we're talking about it, all this is out of order, of course, now, but, oh, okay, there's a bigger piece. For a guy rope, like on here, for other things we have, you can get these nice guy rings that are 3D printed. Well, I just take 100 feet of rope and fold it in half at the end. I'm gonna pretend this is 100 feet. You can't see the end of that, that's 100 feet. And I just tie it in a clove hitch around the mast. Okay, and then, so that's 2 guy ropes right there. And then for the third one, yeah, there we go. The third one just goes through that with a sheet bend, and there's your 3 guy ropes. So, yeah, so anyway, there's lots of, we'll get to that when we get to ropes, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Anyway, that happens. Okay.
Have you had any experience with the soda beans poles that they sell?
I haven't used the soda beans poles.
Okay.
There's a lot of things I haven't used. A lot of things I have that aren't intended for antennas. So, we'll see some of that. Okay. Okay, so I'm running way behind schedule already. By the way, with the TV push-up masks, I've seen 2 of them bend on field day when somebody tried to put it up with an antenna on top. Don't try and tip them up into position unless you do a whole lot of hard work.
Yeah, one of the things that you can do on that top of that other pole, if you wanna hang something to it, is just take one of those old, painting rollers, take the roller.
Yeah. And I actually,
Weld it or.
so you can, or I have an old squeegee, and I wanted to mount a beam antenna on here, a 2-meter beam, and so I just took the rubber piece off and clamped it to the thing and tie wrapped it to it. Anything you find with an Acme connector. Sectional masks. Now, the most common ones here that people see these days are the military mast sections. They come in 3 types, and it's important to keep them straight. These are the solid aluminum ones. They're some of the older ones. We put up the TA33 Junior for field day. Some people here will understand that process and have been out there doing it. And we've done that. The ideal for that, by the way, is probably about 2.5 people. 3 would work. I have put these up to 40 feet before by myself. Though I wouldn't have left it there because it only had 1 set of guys, and the fiberglass ones tend to break at the bottom. Again, you might want to put hose clamps around it if you need to.
Where would you get those?
These are often available at military surplus, or the mast company used to have them. They're out of these now. The lighter weight metal ones that have this crimpage and there's a little bit of a corrugation to it, not corrugation, but anyway, ripple effect. And these aren't as strong, they're lighter weight. The mast company, TMC, the mast company, sells these on their website, and they recommend them for verticals, like if you want to put up a 40-meter quarter-wave vertical or something like that, they're fine, but they say don't put much weight on them because they're not as strong.
Are you saying MASH, M-A-S-A?
M-A-S-T,
Oh,
Mast Company.
So the fiberglass ones are stronger than the metal ones, is that what you're saying?
No, the fiberglass ones are good for rope, for wire antennas. We've put 2-meter beams on them before and had them at 20 feet freestanding, and I didn't know if it was gonna last through field day. Whereas these, we put the 204, or the TA33 Junior on it, got it up to somewhere around 32 feet. And one year, Friday night, we had a microburst come through the field day site, and it blew the trailer awnings all off and stuff like that. Almost blew my tent off into the rock quarry there. And the big antenna with one set of guy ropes was fine. So they really, I have been amazed at how much these have bent when we're putting up that antenna. That's one reason I don't recommend you have too many people helping you, because sometimes it's hard to direct them. Oh, you don't get to watch the video. Okay, so then I have to do a demo. Okay, oh, this should be a good size. Oh, well, okay, that'll work. The old 3/4 inch aluminum tent poles are great. Hard to find these days, unless you hang out at the Goodwill outlet store and just kind of, yeah, but those of you who have a life probably don't need to do that. But what's important to demonstrate, since I don't have the video, is how to put up a sectional mast by yourself. And so I'm going to use the shorter one here. And what I'll, okay, so I need to, I'm going to have to borrow a couple people in the front row for this purpose.
Do you need some help, G?
No, you keep filming. So we'll just find someplace close to the middle of this. So, so you start out, okay, so around here, and I'm going to have UB1 guy anchor, and Paul, you can get another guy anchor. Okay. Yeah, I took over everything. Okay, and so so we're going to start with pull it up to where it's fairly snug at this point. Okay.
It'll be fine.
Okay. Yeah, that's okay. You can just get it as tangled as you need to. So the first thing I do is I typically, okay, now pull that up to where it's snug. Okay, don't pull hard, but just there we go. Okay, and Paul, pull a little.
Keep it tight.
Yeah. Okay, so you need to put the bottom out because of the weights of the ropes. The weight of these ropes is actually pulling it over. You can see the video on the website, and I'll just come running over here and catch that.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we'll get there. Yeah, so anyway, you rest it against two of the ropes, and often it needs two sections here because these are so light. You'll need a little bit of slack on them. Okay, let's slack this back to about this. Okay, so you have it leaning against the ropes, and then you pick up a section in one hand, you pick this up, keep those tight. As you move this way and stick one in the bottom, set it down and lean it against the ropes. And so, we're not going to make another section, I'll bet, but the same thing. You pick this up and move a little bit towards the anchors every time, and then we'll pick this up.
You can make it.
Just get that in there. Okay, there we go. And so every time the anchors are set, You know, it's tied off to your fence post or your stake or whatever you need, and the base of the mast moves. Now, that makes it a little hard to figure out if you want the mast in exactly this position. But by doing that, as long as I can lift the weight of the mast with one hand, and I've got enough space, I can pick up the mast with one hand, put the other one in underneath, set it down, grab the next one, and keep going. And so doing that approach, I've gotten it up to 40 feet with the mast section. But at that point, it's really too heavy to pick up by one hand. If you're gonna put an antenna on it, you
Let's not bump the
carefully,
ceiling today.
as you go, lower it back down, because once it's up, then you can move the mast, you can retie, you can put some slack in that rope, tighten that one, move it over, move the base, position it, reposition the guys, get it where you want it. It doesn't always come out right initially. But once you get it right, it's like, that's where I want it, the ropes are tight, all that. You take it down, you put the antenna on it, and then you put it back up. Because you know all the guys are set up just the way you want it. And it's gonna end up in the right position. And that's the way we put the 3-element tri-bander on the military mast sections. Sometimes the 5 people or more helping. Everybody wants to help. It's a big thing to do. Anyway, but it's successful. What? That was just a clove hitch. Yeah. We'll just kind of. In fact, I'll have a use for this later on. Okay.
I can wind that for you.
No, I'll do it. So, okay, so anyway, that's the way that you put up a sectional mast with one person, with, if you've got weight on it, then having 2 people lifting, up to 2 people lifting, and a 3rd person feeding sections, it actually works pretty well. Okay, what else did I need to talk about? And you can make your own out of different things. In this case, you need something that either slips inside of or goes around. So in this case, I found some real light aluminum tubing, and I found some pieces of plastic pipe that would fit over the outside. So I can, and this is actually a very lightweight mast. It's lighter than some of the telescoping ones. It's more volume, but it's not a lot of weight. So, and you know, with plastic pipe, fortunately the plastic pipe's short enough, it's not too bad. But again, and if I put it up high enough, then I use that same approach of leaning against 2 guy ropes. But the other solution is if you have these pipes, is you look for something to go inside of them to act as a coupler. Sometimes that might be a wooden dowel. I'll warn you, wooden dowels in a permanent situation will tend to swell if they get wet. That's probably not what you want. Okay, sectional mast. And there's other things you can use. You get creative besides the vacuum cleaner pieces. These were legs for a shelving unit. They're plastic, in fact, we just bought some shelving units and those legs would be great for. But no, I need them for shelving to store all my junk in the garage in the attic. Anyway, so there's lots of different options if you get creative and if you're willing to look around and find it. Again, I'm not telling you what to use. There's only so much I would put on top of these plastic ones, but for a wire antenna or a VHF antenna, they would probably do the job. Okay. Now, next. Okay, I went through the sectional mast setup. Bipod. This is something where I don't have, where the photo would have showed you everything. This is a handy thing that I use, and it especially came in handy when we were operating in a park that did not allow us to put stakes in the ground. and didn't allow us to tie to anything. And there's a lot of other things it didn't allow us to do. And we had the big comm van pulled in, cranked up its tower, and was putting up the 80-meter dipole, and we tied one end off to a guy's roof rack on his car over there. And the other end, what are we gonna do in the, yeah, so, I know, I've got some rope, don't I? Okay, good, we'll do a demo with that. So, what I did is, I took 2 posts. In this case, I had 8-foot bamboo garden posts, put a tie wrap around them to make a bipod, and then the wire from the antenna came down. I wrapped it around a couple of these, and then with these leaning that way, I took a bucket and hung a bucket full of water on the bottom of it, because they were dumping the water had been in the water tanks of the comm van too long. And so they had a bunch of extra water, so we just put a bucket on the end. It was sitting on the ground, held the whole thing up with the bottom of the rope above head height. No stakes in the ground, and if you need to lower it to adjust it, you can just pick up the bipod, lay it down on the ground, go adjust the antenna, and come pick it back up again. So, anyway, I don't have that photo on the website yet, but once we get the new computer up so I can edit the website again, we'll get the bipod photo. And if they do get the slides up online, then there's a photo of it in there, which probably makes it much easier to understand how it works.
Question, why bipod and not a tripod, more stable?
Well, I'd only need 2 because I've got a weight holding it down. I've got a rope coming in from here, and I've got a rope going down to a weight. And so I'm not worried about it falling that way because the rope's pulling that way. And so with just 2 of them is enough to prop it up, but still hold it down. Now I also use that when the rope's coming down at such an angle and I've got to stake it out so far away that I need 200 feet of rope by the time that thing angles down to the ground, and I don't have that much. I can angle it down to this and then down to a stake to shorten it, basically prop up one end and then run it down to a stake. That works too. But because I've got the ropes in that angle, I just need to keep it from going side to side. Okay. Trees, next topic. For backpacking, when lightweight is important, if you can use a local tree, that saves you a lot of weight and bulk to carry a mass. Some of us tend to go backpacking where there are trees. Some people don't. We have lots of trees in the Pacific Northwest, especially the Douglas fir and the ponderosa pine and the Sitka spruce, and some of those can be very good. But it may mean that you need to position the station where the tree is instead of the other way around. And so oftentimes they say, oh, I think I'll set up camp under this tree because that's one I can use. You can't see my picture of tree shapes. So some like the Doug fir, nice straight trunk, long branches coming out to the side. You can just put a rope over a branch, works pretty well. Some of the broadleaf trees, they got lots of branches, they make this big spreading canopy, and sometimes you can get a low branch for a dipole, that's good enough. Or you may have to just put a rope over the top of the whole crown of the tree and pull it up that way.
Is that okay to do if you have insulated wire? Does it attenuate too much?
Yeah, that's what I do. Now, oftentimes that's rope going, it might be rope or it might be wire. I haven't found much of a problem with insulated wire. That's what I use. You can actually take a lot of liberties and still have things work.
So somebody actually did a study on trees for supports, and the answer is do not use a vertical wire supported by a tree.
Yeah. And actually,
horizontal, no problem.
Well, yeah, and so because you can actually use the tree as an antenna also.
So the vertical wires in parallel with the trunk,
Yeah.
and then you're resonating.
And on VHF, if you're using vertical polarization, it tends to reflect off the trees more. And if you're trying to take if you're doing direction finding with vertical polarization in a forest, it tends to give you more reflections and horizontal polarization. Anyway, that's not a part of this talk. Anyway, so pay attention to what your tree shapes are and what's gonna work. Some, like some of the cedars and larches, the branches kind of come down like this. It's harder to get a rope to stay over that. You might have to kind of put it around and then pull the rope sideways to get it to stay up. So, trees and antenna support. Oh, you can't see all the pictures. My favorite is just put one rope up and haul up an inverted V. Might be multiple elements. That's easy. Obviously, you can string a dipole between two trees. If you string a full wave loop in a delta shape between the same two trees, the average height is a little bit lower, but you can get by with less speed line. And you can get a wider bandwidth. Or, there's a whole thing about shapes of loops versus impedance, but if you gauge the loop for 50 ohms by making it narrower and taller, you may be able to have the ends come down to the radio and not use feed line at all. And you can do other things like, if you have two trees with the right orientation, you can put a rope between the two of them and string up wire beams. We had a 5-element delta loop for 20 meters for field day, which is a little bigger than most people have for field day antennas. Okay. But how do you get a rope over the tree branch? Well, there's lots of ways. You've got, the slingshots and all that kind of stuff, and the pneumatic cannon, and bow and arrow was one that I used when I had a bow and arrow available. Cast a fishing rod.
Were still alive?
What?
And your neighbors while they were still alive?
But my favorite now is the throwing bucket. Okay, so there's 3 pieces. There's a bucket. I actually don't recommend it much bigger than this, in spite of the videos on my website where it says that, oh, if I use a wash tub, or a dish pan or something, or a big cooking pot, it's easier to get the rope into. Well, it didn't work as well. And braided rope. The reason for braided rope is that it's smoother over the branch. And very often the problem is not getting the rope over the branch, it's getting it back down again. And so a braided line gives you a smoother finish and it doesn't hang up on the bark as much. And then a weight, I use tennis balls or dog fetch balls. They're innocuous, especially if people don't know that there's 4 ounces of lead inside of it. And if you're, what?
How do you seal it?
Oh, it still has the crack there, but it was fishing. It's 2 fishing weights that are tied onto this string.
You can hot glue
What?
it. Hot glue.
Yeah, so there's no need to. If you're backpacking,
Because you tied the string directly to the lead weights.
I tied the string to it. I passed it through a washer on the inside and tied it to the fishing weights, and that won't pull back through. And I could hit it through the crack. Now, if you're backpacking and you don't want to carry that extra weight, then you can just squeeze this till the slot opens. You might need a little bigger slot, and put your own rocks in there when you stop, or sand. I stopped in Tasmania one time, found a beautiful picnic table on a bluff overlooking the salt water of the bay, and I said, oh, the band should be about open for 10 meters right now. And and could not find a rock to tie on the end of my rope because it was all sand. But I found an old sock, so I filled the sock with sand and used that. And I'm running out of time here, so I'll need to be quick. But basically, my technique is I swing it just so it clears the ground, and that sets my azimuth angle, where it's going to throw. As I get that to where I'm happy with it, and then swing back and fling it upwards. And sometimes it does that. And once the rope just pays out of the bucket, and then once you pick it up off the ground behind you where you didn't want it, you just feed the rope back into the bucket. And I have videos on the website, and in my talk, in fact, that show doing this. And I can get it up 50, 60 feet. It's like, you know, in most cases for portable operation, I don't need more than that.
Have you looked at Spectra or Dyneema, high molecular weight, super frictionless?
So, I went to braided fishing line. Okay. I want to say it must be Teflon coated. It's real slick, it's real light. The problem is I can't hold on to it. And so in this case, I tied this piece of throwing rope, tied a piece onto it that I can hold on to. Now I do recommend gloves when you're getting started, because if you don't grip hard enough and it slips out of your hand, you're going to get rope burns. And so in this case, I tied this piece of rope in where I'm going to hold it. This gave me another 5 to 10 feet of height, because there's less weight of the rope that the ball has to pull. And I was amazed how much faster it came down through the tree because of the reduced friction. And also, this bucket is a little narrower at the base. And what I find is that helps because it means the rope's less likely to tangle. Now, you always want to be able to take the ball off the end. Because, yeah, so I have a snap swivel here. In other cases, I just have big enough loops. And you always want to make sure that the rope is attached to the bucket.
The other end,
yeah, when I do a demo in the field, I always say, oh, I can use my hat to do this, right? And I put it in my hat and throw it, and of course I use the short rope, and the end of the rope just goes right on over the tree with the rest of it. But you want to be able to undo it at each end. And the reason is, once you get that rope over the tree, you might want to pull from one end, or you might want to pull from the other end. So make sure you can take it off from both ends. And I don't use this rope for anything else. When I'm out there with a throwing bucket, that rope stays in the bucket. Unless I'm out there by myself and I know I just need to put this one rope over a branch, that's all I need.
Would your bucket method apply to a pneumatic that's a little taller?
You can use the bucket.
Every time I'm trying to fishing line, it breaks or takes off on me.
Yeah, because of the sudden shock.
Yeah.
But yeah, you could use this for that. And this is now what okay, come on, you can get out of there. So this is the peanut butter jar. And what I found is, actually this is, yeah, there we go, okay. Sometimes it'll tangle a bit. But this is the braided mason twine that they now carry in the hardware stores. They didn't back when, but you can now get braided mason twine. The pink color shows up really well on the videos, and so that's what you'll see if you look at the videos on the website, is this pink stuff. And actually this little, it's slower to reload, but it works quite well. And in fact, K7KER Kathleen sewed a little bag to hold it all and uses that. And other people have used a Ziploc bag with the top folded down to hold it open. All depends on how much rope you want. I have 250 feet, I think, in here. And that usually does for whatever I need for a throwing bucket. Okay, so a lot of stuff I can't show you now, and I have 1 minute left, it says. Okay, we went through the throwing bucket. Couple accessories. The military mass sections, two of them, and these big aluminum ones, happens to be a slip fit for 1-inch PVC pipe. Well, that one doesn't quite go down all the way. Always make sure you got it right. This one needs a little shorter adapter. And what this arrangement does is we can clamp an antenna to this, and that gives you a thrust bearing, and the antenna will turn inside the pipe, and a rope on the back for an Armstrong rotor allows you to turn the antenna from ground level. And so that's the way we mount a beam on the top of these, or anything else I want to mount on top of this. I can just make something out of 1-inch PVC. The fiberglass one takes 3/4 inch PVC, pretty snug. And this adapter, it's similar, but it's got a T connector, and that's for some of the VHF antennas where the coax comes down inside of it. So it can go down through here and come out the side, and I don't have to fish the coax all the way down through the mast. So anything you need to go on top of these fiberglass ones, you can do with 3/4 inch PVC. Let me see if there's anything else I can cover quick, because just about the end. The other thing for pulley at the top, this goes on top of the fiberglass one, and this is just a pipe hanger from the hardware store, or something like this gives me 2 halyards. So I always use a halyard all the way up and around and back down, so that I don't lose the end like a flagpole. And what I found was, you know, usually if I'm going to put one up for field day or something, I never know when I might need another, so I always put up 2. Just as easy, and it balances the weight. Let me see if there's anything else. I have a whole thing that I was going to go through on alternatives to knots, because not everybody ties knots, and rope. Reflective rope, bright colors, reflective rope. This is what I use for guying the mast sections. And because it's bright color, that was before I found the reflector stuff. In that case, I just carefully tied the knot on top to fit over, and there we go. And so I put 3 of those on, and the rope length for the guying the mast, twice the height of the mast. So for a 28-foot mast, I'll use a 50-foot piece. But just as a general guideline, that's what I would use, is twice the height of the mast as a good starting point. And one other thing, if you're doing a big thing like a field day, I mean, you know, paracord is great, but except for guying that mast, I don't use it. It's too big. If I'm doing a big field day, I use baling twine. One of the last field days we did out there at Camp Smith, we used 1/2 mile of rope. And you know, but you can get baling twine in a 1/2 mile spool. In fact, I think we had a 5 mile spool out there for $30 or something like that. So if you're going to, you know, do something like that, I like the smaller sizes of paracord, and you can even get down to the micro cord. What?
Yeah, the micro and the nano.
Yeah, this is the micro cord. In fact, here it is. Comes in all different colors. And so if you want to be noticed, you know, you want to see where your ropes are, you can use this. If you don't want people to see your ropes up, you can do that. There's lots of options. Again, I like braided ropes. This is the stuff I got up in the commercial fishing supply shop in Ketchikan, Alaska. They were sold for crab pots. It's seine twine. It's a nice, soft, braided rope. I'm still hoarding the bits that I have left 40 years later. So I am out of time, so I'm going to stop babbling. If there are questions while I pack stuff up, you're welcome to ask. Otherwise, there's...
For more information, visit practicalantennas.com or check out our other videos. Thanks for watching.